Hello, everyone. A major announcement from the Bank for International Settlements in regards to the BIS saying no to BRICS. So, smash that like if you haven't done so already. Consider sticking to the end of the outline. There will be chapters. Watching 2x speed if you don't have all the time in the world, or just jump to the whatever you need, the chapters and so on. Let's get into this video, why it matters for you being a Ripple or Quant holder. And before we get into this, it benefits the channel, the Decent wallet. Get yourself a discount, not your keys, not your crypto.
If managing your crypto feels like solving a puzzle, it's time to switch to Decent Wallet. Just a few taps, you can manage, track, and secure your crypto with unmatched ease. And here's the best part. Grab your Decent Wallet at a discounted price by using the referral link below. Don't miss out on making your crypto experience smoother and more secure.
So what we have for you is this video. Let's just jump right into it. Hear it from the horse's mouth. Agustín Carstens with the Bank for International Settlements. Let's go ahead and play this.
So 2 questions, if I may. One macro, one micro. So on the macro, so as a bit of a segue to David Marsh on the BRICS currency, we all kind of agree that this is not going to happen anytime soon. It's not even an idea, because where would you put the central bank? Moscow, Brasilia, so it doesn't make sense. However, there's an interpretation of it that could be a bit more interesting, which would be China building the rails, to use Andrew Bailey's definition, along the Belt and Road Initiative countries, and then having the renminbi all over the countries running on those rails. So the geopolitical aspect of CBDC, that would be my first question. The second, on the micro, Governor does talk about anonymity, but in reality, CBDCs would probably protect only privacy. But even privacy is not enough. Some critics of CBDC says what they really fear is that once they adopt CBDC, the government can decide itself to shut a person out of the system, given the programmability. So how would you respond to that kind of critic? Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you just pass the mic down to Governor Ingves.
Well, first of all, let me say that this is a remarkable panel, because I started talking about these things about 10 years ago, and it would have been absolutely impossible then to discuss the way we discuss today. And kudos to all of you, because back then, basically, I was told, can you just tell your citizens to use physical cash and stop it? And the answer to that is no. But that's not really my question. My question is the following. Actually, what we are talking about here is fiat money. And fiat money is actually decided not by central banks or created by parliaments ultimately at the end of the day, because otherwise you just don't know what you have. And in that environment, it took us a long, long time, going back to the late 1800s, to come to the conclusion that in most cases, and that was in a world when everything was on paper, it would be okay for the central bank to be the sole issuer of physical cash. Now we're moving into a world where everything is going to be digital. And that, of course, raises the whole issue of to what extent it should be possible for the general public to hold fiat money in the form of digital central bank money. And who is to decide that? Is it the political system, ultimately, at the end of the day? Or should it be up to the central bank themselves to come to the conclusion, no, just let's ignore providing the general public with digital currency? Thank you.
Okay. Stefan, if you can hand to Piyush, please.
Hi. Thanks. If I had to very succinctly try to define the differences, the commonality, everybody agrees there's power in tokenized money. You can program it as atomic, real-time settlements. The subtle difference is, Governor Das says, let the central bank do it. Governor Bailey says, let's put a threat on the table, have retail CBDCs just in case the private sector in its rent-seeking capacity doesn't want to innovate and doesn't want to do it, so let's have it in case. And Agustín says, let's lean in and help the private sector use and tokenize commercial deposits to create something. So end game is the same, it's just three different approaches to how you might want to deal with it. Now, I tend to believe that what Agustin's suggesting works. In Singapore, we have programmable money exactly as you have, sir. We have purpose bond money. We have the government payments going. We have tokenized government. But MAS has leaned in to help us create that with commercial deposits, tokenizing commercial deposits, as opposed to issuing direct central bank currency. So my question actually is more to Governor Das. Why would you believe that the commercial banking sector would not lean in and would require and necessitate the central bank to take that step?
Okay. Great. 3 questions. If you want to comment on the BRICS thing, you can comment, but you don't have to. Let's put it that way.
Okay. So the gentleman on the far left mentions if you want to comment on the BRICS thing, you can, but you don't have to. Just jumping right to the point. The other people on the panel, one particular gentleman who sits next to that guy who mentioned that, represents India. As we know, India is a BRICS nation member. He doesn't answer. He dodges the question. The other gentleman in the middle also dodges the question. Whether you like Agustín Carstens or not, he doesn't dodge the question. All right? So we're going to pull this back up, and you're going to see it for yourself. I'm going to, of course, fast forward to this other key area, and again, why it's significant.
It's a very difficult question.
Yeah.
It's the kind of question that's you can have an intuitive answer to.
It's easy to say,
but then you really need to, really need to think through. On the Agustín, please.
Yeah, on the first question, I fully second what Andrew said. And let me add just two points. One, technology will not define if a currency is more coveted for others. I think the real issue is what gives value to the money and the usability. And I tend to agree with Andrew that if it's being fragmented and others, payment systems are being developed for the wrong reasons. We at the BIS are working on many of these projects, but none is designed for the BRICS. And as a matter of fact, we cannot directly support any project for the BRICS because we cannot operate with countries that are subject to sanctions. So I just want to be very clear about that. The question of Stefan, I think it's a great question. I fully agree. Now, for me, I think what we should ask from the parliaments is to preserve the options that today population has. And the option that today the population and society has is to be able to have a retail direct liability of the central bank. Today we have it in the form of cash. Now, why, given the technological development, we could not give access to society in the technological representation that society demands? Once you give that option to society, then it will be a matter of competition as it is today. Having in mind that there is commercial sector and there are others that really will be striving to become far more competitive than central bank money. But I think it's very important to give that options to society. Otherwise, I think the role of the central bank would put into question.
Okay, so you heard from Agustín Carstens as far as his official statement about, let's face it, saying no to the BIS. And just in case you missed it, I have taken the quotation. When asked about BRICS, basically, he states, as in Agustín Carstens, that the Bank of International Settlements, none is designed for the BRICS. Like nothing that they have is designed for BRICS. Therefore, they cannot directly support any project for the BRICS because, quote, we cannot operate in countries that are subject to sanctions. All right, well, if the war comes to an end with Ukraine and Russia, will that change everything? Would a new Trump administration change everything? Again, I don't have the answer for that, but I thought that was incredibly interesting. Now, here's the thing. Before we jump into the next part of an update from the BIS, Channing, I do want to get your key takeaway in regards to this, because if the BIS, the central bank of central banks, is not going to go with BRICS, then will that create more demand for Ripple XRP? Because, let's face it, like BRICS would be outside that possibly. Would it create more demand for Quant? It's speculative, but people were wondering this, and now you have an official statement from Agustín Carstens. Let's face it, he is the face of the Bank for International Settlements, the central bank of central banks. Your thoughts?
So yeah, it's so many different ways you can go with that whole statement that Argentina, but actually that whole clip. Let's talk about the clip first. That clip shows you that globally you have the highest of the high in banking and finance now, not only playing in the realm of Web3, but literally operating and deploying solutions. So what I'll do is I'll start just with the overall. Seeing that panel and understanding that you now have global leaders, not just thinking about the Web3 sector, but at this point in time, they are now literally tapping into Web3. They are deploying solutions in different tech stacks of Web3 into their everyday processes. It's like what Agustín Carstens said in regards to things like CBDCs and the innovation of the other players outside of the central bank, where no, we don't want to stifle that. We want that to happen, because if we just force ours on everybody, that may call into question the quote unquote legitimacy maybe of the central bank. But if we literally create a realm where we are all, both the central bank and your private players like your Ripples and your this and your that, are in some way coming together, working together, building out public-private kind of sort of solutions to the CBDC or stable coin situation in these countries, that's a more feasible way to go about it. And that would probably make the public trust the process more. But going over to the BRICS, yes, it is, just to see. But my question to that though is that he said BRICS, but yet you still have China and India and all those things that are a part of the Bank of International Settlements. So is he speaking in the realm of, I can't specifically talk about if the BRICS coalition has come together, because we won't work with that, but the individual companies that already fall, that already fall up under our umbrella, is, then it makes me call into question a little bit about, Enbridge, and maybe that was the reason why they removed themselves from Enbridge. Now Enbridge is still operational, still up and going, but the Bank of International Settlements removed themselves from it, maybe because of the sanctions that were put on Russia. Because of that, it's just because brings up a whole lot of more questions. But it is very interesting to finally start to see some of these major players in the world of finance and global infrastructure now actually talking about literally things like the internet, talking about the distributed technology sector in their countries, talking about CBDCs versus stable coins, and how the central banks and the public-private-ish companies working together to bring out solutions, because it's going to happen. It's like the guy said in the video, the digitization it's like you can't put it back in a bottle. You can't, stop the train. It's on the tracks. It's going full steam ahead. There's no more stops. The next stop is Web3. So it's very refreshing to see that it's not just us guys on YouTube or us guys on X, reading documents and trying to, put out content and things of that nature, but it's actually now the biggest players in the world that sit over some of the biggest entities in the world now talking about this sector and taking this sector seriously and actually implementing solutions of this sector into the technologies that they're currently using today. So I just think that's 2025 is going to be something like we've never seen before. It is that literally that bridge coming together and fusing so that we can start taking journeys back and forth between Web 2 and diving into Web 3, whether that's Web 2.5 or Web 3.0, wherever we sit in today's technology, realm. We're at a point where it's no return and it's full steam ahead. So buckle in and let's go for this ride because it's going to be incredible. I wish I could fast forward and snap my fingers into 2030 just to see how all of these things that are now being brought out and now being announced and talked about over these past few years are actually up and running, and we're potentially in a real utility, bull run, and see how your XRPs and your Quants and your XLMs and your IOTAs and your XDCs and every other ISO token that's a part of that mix, see where they sit, because in my eyes, the future is unlimited. There's no cap, there's no ceiling, So I'm kicking back over to you, brother.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier the whole thing about China, and at the very beginning of that video, that was something that was brought up, and I was thinking about, China. Obviously, China is one of the letters in BRICS, right? So the way I look at it is, there's also the whole thing of Quant and Fastnet, and again, an emphasis on China. I mean, it's just interesting timing. Here is the update that we're going to get into for you guys straight from the BIS. So, again, please smash that like. The content's free. We do appreciate you. Whatever the case be, let's get into it. So, as it comes up on your screen, understand that this is from a person by the name of Maclem. What does he have? Well, he mentions structural change. And here's where it gets really, really interesting if you're a QNT holder. Now, I know we included some Ripple in this, but think about this for a second. Don't overthink about it. What have we seen lately? Shout out to our brother in the community, Mr. Sebastian and Mind Crypto and Tokenizer and whoever else is covering this. Nick and Cash, right? So I want you guys to keep in mind that when we get into the weeds about QNT, especially lately, well, it's like constant reference to supply shock. We know that when it comes to Coinbase movement, it's like, wow, 22,000 QNT was moved within 7 minutes, and then 14 minutes later, another $22,000 or $22,000, excuse me, 22,000 QNT was moved again, and we've seen it on Coinbase, we've seen it on Binance. And that is significant. Again, supply shock. But we do know about the Quant connection when it comes to supply shock with the BIS. And it's like, it's interesting to see how this is all panning out. And is this somewhat recent? It is. February 6, 2025, literally posted from the BIS. I'm going to get into the fundamentals of why you want to listen to this and where we're going with this moving forward. Because when we get into the weeds about this, my oh my. Remarks virtually by Mr. Tiff Macklem, governor of the Bank of Canada, at the Chapultepec conference in Mexico City. Again, think about it, Agustín Carstens, his position when it comes to Mexico. So this happened on the February 6th of 2025. Views expressed in the speech are those of the speaker and not the view of the BIS. All right, so I've taken the liberty to jump over to this PDF about this structural change and supply shocks and so on, and especially this whole thing from Agustín Carstens. With that said, I decided to make this a little bit more fun and interesting, other than Maximus reading this like I'm, Ben Stein, or, Mr. Bueller from, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and bore you. Let me give you visuals. I like doing this for you guys. So I have a little video. We're going to get into the summary about this. And basically, if you're wondering, well, what is it really? Well, it's a summary of the speech of Macklem. Again, just in case you forgot, he's the governor of the Bank of Canada at the Chapultepec conference. Listen to this. We'll come back and we'll share the last part in regards how this does affect Quant and Ripple, let's face it, moving forward. Let's go ahead and play this.
Tiff Macklem's speech at the Chapultepec conference serves as a critical reflection on the evolving global economic landscape, marked by unprecedented challenges and the need for adaptive strategies. He commends Agustín Carstens for his leadership at the Bank for International Settlements, recognizing the multifaceted crises that have emerged during his tenure, including pandemics and inflationary pressures. Macklem outlines the transition from favorable economic conditions to a more daunting reality characterized by high interest rates, increased debt, and sluggish growth. He highlights the implications of technological advancements, climate change, and geopolitical tensions, particularly noting the potential impact of new tariffs from the US under President Trump, which could undermine business confidence in Canada and Mexico. In addressing monetary policy, Macklem underscores its limitations in tackling structural changes and supply shocks, illustrating the precarious position of central banks that must navigate the dual challenges of economic slowdown and inflation with a singular tool: interest rates. He advocates for a balanced approach, combining humility with confidence in established frameworks, and emphasizes the necessity of transparent communication regarding the constraints of monetary policy. Macklem calls for a deeper understanding of supply-side issues through enhanced data analysis and a closer engagement with businesses and households. Furthermore, he emphasizes the importance of international cooperation among central banks to effectively manage global challenges while maintaining independence from political pressures. He champions an evidence-based, technocratic approach, open to learning and constructive critique. In conclusion, Macklem acknowledges the tougher global environment, but reaffirms the crucial role of independent central banks in steering through these turbulent times, expressing optimism for ongoing discussions with his peers.
Okay, Channing, so international cooperation. When I hear these terms of international cooperation, I think about what the Quant Network posted literally on their website about the whole thing of, adapt or get left behind. I want to get your thoughts before we kick into the last video in regards to how would this affect Ripple and even Quant moving forward, Mr. Channing Harrell.
Yes, let's kind of like what I was just saying before, like you just said, the international cooperation. Listen, it's going to take everyone working together to build out the framework of Web 3. Right now, it's like Gilbert says all the time, they sit in silos where you may have great technology, great tech, great this, great that, speed, low transactions, all of these things, but it's literally sitting just within your Web 3 house. What Quant does is lay out a street and allow all the houses to become a neighborhood. And then that neighborhood becomes a city. And then that city becomes a state. And then that state becomes a country. And then that country becomes the world. That is what they're doing as far as bridging together the technologies of all of these different things, the global structure of this sector literally being birthed from the early days of the internet to your more modern take of it. You want to know what Tokenizer said? Something in one of the posts that he just posted, and next to QNT, he had past, present, and future money. That's exactly what they're doing. They are connecting the past, the present, and the future all together under one umbrella, a gateway or a corridor, which is Overledger. And to see that you have now all of these countries that are building out these processes that know about Overledger from all the other videos that we've done in so many different ways, whether it's from patents, whether it's from standards and all these things, and then understand that they're at a point now where testing is done, the beta is done. We need to start trying to implement these things in the real world to see how true mass adoption truly looks. And you see that coalition truly coming together, especially from videos like we just saw, because those players on that stage are from all different parts of the world, representing major parts of those economies. And to know that they're all on the same page when it's coming to this whole blockchain and distributed ledger technology era that we're getting ready to move into, the golden age of crypto. But kick it back over to you, brother.
Yeah, the golden age, it seems like it's going to be here soon. I mean, I think it's 2025 is going to be the key enabler, obviously, with regulations. Now, listen, something was brought up in that little video I gave you with the summary was the whole thing of evidence-based. Now, just in case you think I'm only presenting it to you in regards to, the whole thing of that, well, again, even in the summary from this here, well, you see this whole thing, it mentions on the document, and I'll pull it up. On page 3 of 3, finally, we need to remain evidence-based. Think about that for a second. Being independent and accountable and continuously learning is how we build trust. So internet of trust, internet of value, evidence-based. Now, here's your key highlight. What was the significance of the last year with, 2024 of the RLN? That was evidence-based. That's why they all came together, right? So this is all adding up for all of us. Now, in closing, we're going to show you this last video. And that basically is this right here. It's the whole thing of, well, with everything being presented, what would this mean for the Quant network and, of course, Ripple moving forward? Let's answer that question with this video summary about to come up on your screen. Here we go.
The statement by Agustín Carstens concerning the inability of the bank for international settlements to support BRICS projects due to sanctions has far-reaching consequences. For BRICS countries, particularly those like Russia and Iran, this stance signifies a deepening financial isolation, compelling them to seek alternative financial systems and payment mechanisms. The urgency to develop initiatives such as BRICS Pay and bolster institutions like the New Development Bank will likely intensify. Moreover, the absence of backing from Western financial institutions may serve as a catalyst for BRICS nations to advance their de-dollarization efforts, striving for reduced reliance on the US dollar in international trade. This geopolitical shift could foster new alliances with non-Western countries, enabling BRICS to build a robust counterbalance to Western financial dominance. For companies like Quant Network and Ripple, this presents a unique opportunity. Quant Network, with its over-ledger technology, could become increasingly relevant as BRICS countries look for interoperable blockchain solutions that circumvent traditional financial networks. Ripple, known for its efficient cross-border payment solutions, may find a burgeoning market within BRICS as these nations aim to facilitate transactions in local currencies, aligning with their goal of diminishing dollar dependency. However, both companies must navigate the complex landscape of sanctions, focusing on compliance and innovative strategies to deliver their services. By positioning themselves as reliable partners in a market seeking alternatives to SWIFT and dollar-centric systems, Quant Network and Ripple could carve out significant competitive advantages. Ultimately, while Carstens' remarks limit direct support for BRICS, they simultaneously open doors for blockchain and fintech solutions, potentially accelerating these technologies' adoption as BRICS pursues greater financial autonomy.
Think about this for a moment, everybody. Opening up the doors. How about open up the gates, the gateways? How about for example, the rails, the settlement rails based off of evidence? That is why the whole thing of the regulated liability network was so significant. And if anything, understanding that even here in the United States, we have the U.S. regulated settlement network. XRP will definitely stand out in that regard. Stellar XLM, Hedera HBAR, and some of the other ones that participated in those trials. So that's my takeaway from it. Closing thoughts from you, Mr. Channing Harrell, with all the presented material in this deep dive BRICS outline for you guys.
Yeah, and just piggybacking on the evidence. Yes, it's RLN, it's the RSN, it's Project Rosalind, Project Hamilton, Project Hevexia, Project Agora. All of these things are collecting evidence globally, showing the powers that be, like your Agustín Carstens from the from the Bank of International Settlements, and the Fed here, Jerome Powell, Christine Lagarde in the EU, the Parliament, as far as the UK is concerned, the Bank of Canada, the Bank of Australia, all of these people showing them, hey, this evidence that's being laid out and being presented in front of us, it's looking like this is a true solution. It's not just talk and hype, and it's way more than, no controversy by saying this, but Bitcoin and, other meme-ish tokens. This is actually something that we can use, and we can actually utilize it inside of our processes to ensure innovation, ensure growth and development within our borders. And that's how they're looking at it from an overall bird's eye point of view, which is incredible to know. Just 5 years ago, these conversations were not happening inside these rooms. 10 years ago, it wasn't even a whisper. Most people in the room didn't even know what a blockchain was, and if they did, they associated it with something that was off par and criminal. So to know that we're now at a place where it's not just being talked about, it's not just being thought of, but it's actually being implemented. And now they want evidence. So, and think of the people and the players that are the ones presenting the evidence and how they'll be tapped into moving forward, because they've already shown that their systems and their processes are safe, resilient, I'll say future-proof for time being, that we sit in the technology realm that we sit in right now, and that it can be deployed on any network, in any country, 7 days a week, 365, no downtime. Let's rock and let's roll. And you know that to be true because they're now doing things like putting real-time gross settlement systems of countries and connecting that into blockchain operating systems from in some way or another. So I think, like you said, 2025 is that adapt or get left behind. And you have so many players that are like, I'm not going to be blockbuster. I'm not going to be left behind. I am going to adopt. I'm going to adapt. We're now going to start revisiting the Web3 space. We're going to see how we can implement it into our solutions, into our companies or our countries, and understand that this is going to push innovation and is going to drive the economy even further. That is why these patents that you brought up earlier, there's no coincidence that Quant Network has gotten so many patents simultaneously on the same day. Like 38 EU countries, boom, one whop. You got, Japan and America and the UK and the UN all in the same day, boom, one whop. It's like this, it's countries seeing the value of what's being presented in front of them and looking at the evidence of what's being presented in front of them, and they're tapping into it and bringing it on board. So we live in a great time. Like I'm going to say, the golden age of crypto. I'll have another video coming out soon. We just had another press conference here in the US, and literally the title is the golden age of crypto, and it's members from Congress talking about the distributed ledger technology sector. And I'm going to watch that recently, and I'm going to have a video out about it within the next day or so. But just know that the golden age is upon us. We are here, and we are literally laying the fabric for the next gilded age of global financial economies. And anyone that's tapping into Quant, XRP, or Ripple via XRP, your Hederas, your Stellars, your IOTAs, your XDCs, your XLM, which is Stellar, and any other valuable real world based Web3 company, you're gonna be very, very happy, your future self. Just don't think of 2025. Don't think of 2026. Think of 2030. Think of 2035. And think of where you could potentially be by literally putting a plan in place and executing that plan and just seeing it play out and watch how it unfolds. Because right now it's looking quite incredible. But I'm going to kick it back over to you, brother.
Now, earlier, Channing, you mentioned, WAP this and WAP that. I'm thinking to myself, that sounds familiar, like Kendrick Lamar's. Gilbert Verdian, like the Kendrick Lamar of crypto. Just the wop, 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 right? Anyway, we're getting a little silly. But anyway, guys, gals, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Simply do us a favor. You listen to the entire outline and type this into the comments, and that is what, and we'll know that you listened to the entire outline. On behalf of myself and Mr. Channing Harrell, who can be followed over at King Channing, know what you have, know where you hold it. The Research Trust Fund, 110%. We will see you on the next one.